Deadrock is back, and we're starting off the next day, where Class F has a new teacher. She is a foot, a literal foot. She's supposed to be like the descendant of Bigfoot. That's her origin point, but it took it literally, the point where she's literally the foot of Bigfoot. Obviously, the entire class is confused and wondering what the hell is going on, why they have a foot for a teacher, and at a certain point, this upsets May the foot, and so May decides to use her stink, which is literally just the bad smell of a foot that she could just launch across the entire room, making everyone just cry in disgust. Honestly, I was not expecting this at all. Like, this is classic Mashima humor, something that he did, like, in Rave Master and early Fairy Tail. Honestly, I was not expecting to see it here in Deadrock. Anyway, after the class settles in, that is when Freya finally shows up with a new haircut. This is a pretty classic trope in anime. Whenever there's like this big emotional change for a female character, she'll cut her hair short. That's basically what Freya is doing right now. And she declares that she's going to get revenge for Yakuto and kill God. Of course, she asks for everyone else's help because she knows she can't do this alone, and one by one they all start agreeing. Makoto, she acknowledges that actually her plan was to take down God from the very beginning because she's a member of Ghost, so they now all know that she's an agent undercover. Shoko reveals that she's always been trying to kill God from the very beginning, so she's on board. Ryzen finally tells them the reason why he's there, that his goal was to become a demon lord, so this way he would have the power to get revenge and kill the man that killed his princess, Hannibal. But Hannibal is now going to be a teacher at their school. As such, he now has every reason to take part in not just killing Hannibal, but killing God. And Hani also declares that he wants to get revenge for his friend, and so he decides he's going to join them in killing God. That is until they all realize they have no chance, because God one-shotted Yakuto like it was nothing, and Yakuto was the strongest among them. So if any of them pick a fight with God, they would all be killed instantly. That is when Shoko reveals she has the book, God's Root. Apparently, the seal was broken a couple days ago, but she was waiting for everyone in the class to come together, and it took Freya a few days to, settle in after watching Yakuto die in front of her. And so they decide to read the book together, and we get to see a flashback of God. Part of me feels like this is not a real flashback, this is something that God put in the book just to fool people. I'll explain that when I get to it, but basically it starts off with God going to the human realm. He walks up to the gate of a castle and demands to see the king. The guards have no idea who he is and basically tell him to screw off, but the king recognizes him, realizes who it is, invites him in, and God sits upon the throne. The guards get pissed off at this because God should not be sitting on the throne. The king is basically begging for God's forgiveness for his men. They don't understand, and he also tries to tell his men to shut up, to stop trying to insult and antagonize God. And one of the guards says, well, I don't believe in God. Who is this guy? This somewhat offends God. At the same time, he finds it humorous. But he ignores this guy because he then calls upon the king to send in his 3 daughters, which he does, and all 3 of the king's daughters then pledge their fealty and worship to God. To prove this, he then orders all of them to strip. Now, obviously, the king tries to beg God to show mercy, but he ignores this and just blows off all their clothes. 2 of the king's daughters fall down trying to cover themselves. All of the guards basically try to cover their eyes. It would be inappropriate for them to look upon royalty in such a manner. But the 3rd daughter stays completely firm, keeps standing there without shame. God asked her, why is this? And her response is, denying the will of God would be even more shameful of her. He then asks her, if you had to choose between your country or me, who would you pick? And without hesitation, she declares her loyalty to God. And at that moment, God then kills everyone. He kills the other 2 princes, he kills the king, he kills all the guards, and then he just obliterates the entire country. Not just the castle, the country. It is just wiped off the face of the earth. Or the mortal realm. We actually don't know what the mortal realm was called. Anyway, this princess still does not flinch at the sight of everything being eradicated, and still continues to devote herself to God. He then tells her, I'm going to kill you now. And her response is, I will gladly give my life. Once again, no hesitation, no flinching, just accepts it. And that is when God falls to his knees in tears and actually prostrates himself in front of this girl. Now, this is the reason why I find this might be a story that God altered to trick people, because I can't imagine this monster kneeling or prostrating himself for anyone, period. Now, the reason that gives in the story, in the book, is that God requires worship for his power. And so the more devoted, the more worship you give him, the more power you are supplying to him. So this one girl, her worship is more valuable than the entire country that he just obliterated because she's completely dedicated to him to her core, something that the entire country was not. So this is ultimate power for him. And so he is showing his gratitude to her by giving him this ultimate power. But once again, I don't see this monster having any sense of gratitude towards anyone. Anyway, once he's done doing all of that, he then tells her that she's going to be one of his millions of wives. She agrees, and that is where the story ends. So Class F then starts discussing, okay, so the way that we defeat God is by weakening him, by weakening his faith in the mortal realm. There's just a problem with this, and that is the fact that in the mortal realm, there are multiple gods, and people across the world do worship multiple gods, but 2/3 of the human race worship him particularly. And breaking people's faith of him is going to be almost impossible. You can't just erase someone's faith that they've held onto for their entire lives. That's just not how that works. So what they really need to do is understand what is happening in the mortal realm, understand the hearts of the people there, and everything else. And so, Freya then declares that they're all going to the mortal realm. Now, how they're going to do this, I have no idea, because apparently the only way you're supposed to be able to do this is after you graduate from Deadrock. And then once you do that, you then have the magical abilities as a demon lord to just travel between realms. So either this is about to have a time skip, or we're just going to try to sneak into the human realm somehow. Which means they're probably going to need a demon lord to help them, aka a graduate of Deadrock. Okay, and the end of the chapter. I'm a little bit confused on what I'm seeing, because we obviously see Yakuto in a coffin. His head is back, being carried through an area filled with skulls. So I'm not entirely sure if he's in, like, double hell, because technically, they're all demons, and they're already in the underworld. That's what this place is, the underworld. That's why it has multiple layers, hundreds of them, really. Thousands, actually, now that I think about it, because the White Dragon was from over 1,000 floors down. So it heavily implies that Yakuto is now in, like, super underworld, like in hell or whatever. It's unclear of where he's at. Where do demons go when they die? Either way, we're going to have a hell arc, apparently. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure. Like I said, I don't entirely understand where demons go when they die. Guess we'll find out in a month. But until then, if you enjoy this video, subscribe, give a thumbs up so you enjoy more Deadrock and other things. Thank you, and have a great day.